Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about Modern Horizons 3 / Modern Horizons 3 Commander. I'm just going to combine the two. You know, there's only 46 legendaries. I know I say only, but between the Commander set and the base set, that's not a bad amount. I don't think it's not quite as insane as like OTJ, which is nice. You know, I like having a bunch of legendaries that we can choose for Commanders. I'm going to talk about them, but when it gets too many, then I'm a bit, what the heck is going on over here? All right, so we're going to go through my top 10 different commanders that I like the look of that are new. So let me know which ones you guys like, and as well as subscribe. We're trying to hit, 2,500 subs at the moment, so I'd love to hear from you guys about that too. So the first one here is Ashling. So this is the new Ashling here. I think that she's going to make a very interesting kind of spell slinger red deck. There's a bunch of different kind of red cards you could potentially do around this, and the fact that she keeps unspent mana between steps. Now, I don't think that she's necessarily going to be the best commander as opposed to being in the 99 of a different kind of red-blue Izzet spell slinger deck, but I think that she could make a very interesting commander by herself, kind of just a red burn kind of deck or something like that, like a throwing, like some really cool kind of spells that she could potentially use here to make use of this cast or copy instants and sorceries. Next one here is Anna Ked. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly. Sky Captain. Honestly, first of all, I love the side art of this one. This one here, very, very awesome. I like the kind of interesting, different design for Ward. Ward that's not just, mana cost is really interesting. So Ward discard a card is really cool. Whenever a modified creature you control attacks, you get to double the amount of counters on it. Then for each non-token permanent attached to it, you get to create a token of it. There's some really interesting things you could do with this with, either equipment or auras. Some Esper auras or Esper equipment would be really awesome. I'd love to see what you guys could potentially do with this, as well as just doubling the amount of counters on it is really cool. Like just purely building it around counters if you wanted to, or a combination between counters and auras and equipment. You could do so many cool things with this. Next one here is Azlak the Swelling Scourge. Obviously, the secondary commander there for the Eldrazi deck, but the way I want to kind of, introduce this guy, or the way I think that you should build him, is just build him around creating as many Scions and Spawns as possible. Just flood the board with all of these Scions and Spawns. Add something in there to kind of buff them up a little bit. But even then, you don't necessarily need to, because you could just go in there, pump in all of this stuff. You can sack your Scions and Spawns for colorless mana as well. Introduce some ways to bring those back, and then just create this insane amount of Scions and Spawns with a whole bunch of experience counters. Pay, this once, and then boom, you've got an indestructible Annihilator army. Really cool stuff. We've got Kaith. So this is the secondary commander for the energy deck. The reason that I really find Kaith interesting is because you could go infinite so many ways. This goes infinite with a ham sandwich, right? Especially around anything that has like, persist. Persist is kind of the number one thing here, because you can bring it back with a +1/+1. Persist, when it dies, -1/-1, it comes back with, and then you put a +1/+1 into it, and boom, you can just have infinite, you can, infinitely sack that. And then on top of that, you've got the really cool, interesting thing here with the populate and proliferate. I love this commander. I think that's really cool stuff you could do with this. I think I'm going to chuck this into my Optimus deck, I think my Optimus deck could really use this one. As well as, just being a really cool commander by herself. We've got Ulalek. Now, the reason that I have this one on here, despite the fact that it is a face commander, I think that the face commanders this time around are very interesting. Even the secondary commanders this time around are very interesting. Like, they're not all kind of boring ones. In fact, I think this is probably one of the more complicated commanders that we've got. So when you get to essentially copy the stack, right? Which means you need to be able to understand what exactly the stack is. You need to understand, what is the triggered abilities, what are the activated abilities, and then know when to cast, like pay that 2 colorless. And you could just do some really big brain stuff with this, as well as there's a bunch of ways to make this go infinite too. We've got Nadu, Winged Wisdom, a very interesting card too. Gives all your creatures, whenever they become the target of a spell or ability, you get to reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, it goes into your hand. It can only trigger twice per turn, but keep in mind it can trigger on other people's turns. Also, you know, because of the fact that it's whenever it's spell or ability, and it's not whenever an opponent casts or anything, you can target your own stuff. You can draw cards from this. You can, you know, land ramp with it. You could do some crazy stuff between, you know, activated ability, like abilities, spells, you know, whether it's you doing it, whether it's opponents doing it. You know, there's a lot of kind of a lot of abilities that you could potentially use like constantly and stuff to be able to draw so much stuff and be able to, you know, yeah, on other people's turns too. The next one here is the Necrobloom. I love the side art of this one is so weird. Anyway, a very interesting card. It's like a combination between, I think it's Avenger of Zendikar and Fields of Dead or something like that, very similar to that, but giving all your lands dredge. I so wish that this card was in Naya colors, because this would be crazy in my Yuma deck, right, with all my deserts and stuff. But anyway, it would be a very interesting commander. 2/7 is a insane stat line. That's a crazy stat line. If you've got so many ways to ramp and, you know, you're green, so you're ramping out your butthole, you can create so many things from this. You've got the fact that it is a plant. They just added a whole bunch of interesting plants as well with OTJ. Lots of really cool ways to do this. Satya is very interesting, right? Face commander again, but, you know, face commander that can go infinite again so easily. Port Razor plus Satya is infinite, because you just get infinite combats, infinite attacks, infinite, you know, combat damage, so many things. I love this card. It's so interesting. And not just that, it's also an interesting energy commander as well. You know, you don't necessarily need to sack stuff, but you get energy each time you attack. Very, very cool. All right, we've got Disa the Restless. So while, you know, the Disa deck is a little bit disappointing for some people because of the fact that it's not based around purely Goyfs, there's only like, what, 10 Goyfs or something like that, so it's missing a few of them in there. But I love the interesting like things that you could potentially do with this deck, right? Whether it's self-milling yourself or something like Buried Alive. This plus Buried Alive is so cool. As well as the fact that you've got, whenever you deal combat damage, you get to create taunacg, so you get to, you know, bring something in like, is it Realm Walker? Is it Realm Walker? No, it's not Realm Walker. There's a changeling that is black and it can't be blocked, right? So not only will that be a Goyf, also you can add in like, you know, changeling into this. Not only would that changeling be a Goyf, but it would also confirm, like, make sure that you get this trigger constantly, so you can get so many taunacg off, and then, you know, just add in some mill for everyone else, or mill yourself to get your Goyfs out, or so many interesting ways you could potentially build this. Even if you wanted to build it around, you know, resurrection and stuff like that, you could build a whole bunch of things around this. There's so many cool ways you could potentially build this. I don't think that the precon necessarily went ham into any of those, but I do think that, like, just the combo alone of Buried Alive with this is crazy good, because you're going to get 3 of your Goyfs, chuck them into your graveyard, then Disa will instantly bring them back. It is a tutor for 3 Goyfs, right? Choose one of those being Pyrogoyf, and then from there, the other ones will also trigger Pyrogoyf too. Crazy cool stuff. I love this card. I think it's very, very interesting, and I really will be interested to see how people build her as an actual, like, Goyf tribal commander. All right, now the last one here is Grist, the Voracious Lava. So this is one of the new flip walkers, but, you know, I think that this is the most interesting one of them. When you flip Grist, down here, the ability, the -6 ultimate thing, for each creature in your graveyard, you get to create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a -1/-1 black-green insect. if you can get to this and you've happened to mill a whole bunch of stuff and somehow Grist managed to survive until you do that -6, which, you know, he can protect himself with this, you could do so many cool things, right? Bring them all back. It also doesn't say, you know, discard, like exile them and then create a token copy. It's just create a token copy. So technically you can still resurrect all those things in your graveyard too. I love it. I love it. It's really, really cool. I think this is going to be probably one of my favorite commanders from this set. Let me know what you guys think though. Which one of these do you think is most interesting, or is there one of the others that you are more interested in? I hope you guys had a wonderful day and goodbye.